Hello and welcome. Silrace here with WoW Classic. I want to talk about the no language specific servers as announced by Blizzard, at least at the time this video is being made and published. Who knows if they decide against it or decide to change their mind down the line. Anyway, background footage is my run as level 1 Tauren from Mulgore to Orgrimmar during the latest stress test, because that run needed to be done. Anyway, enough about that. It's just there for a distraction, something to give you, as a viewing while I talk. Anyways, so what I am talking about as no language specific servers has been announced by Blizzard, at least so far as I mentioned, that aside of the Russians there will not be any German, any French, any Spanish speaking servers, like specific servers for these languages. Russians will get theirs, but everybody else will be clumped on the English speaking servers. And I understand this move from Blizzard's point of view. Well, I am no real authority in player retention. I haven't researched the subject or tried to immerse myself into it or anything of the sort. However, I am fairly sure that fine folks at Blizzard have really put a lot more thought and research into this than I have, and I have done a little bit of it before I started recording this. So, how long will Classic actually last? And I think this is their thought behind this whole thing, behind not making language-specific realms. Because if you think of it, if they were to make language-specific servers, let's say they were to make German, French, and Spanish servers, they would have to basically make at least 3 of each, possibly 4. Because there would have to be a PvE server, and a PvP server, and then possibly an RP server. It could be RP PvE, or they could go all the way further and provide an RP PvP as well. That would be if you take just Spanish, French, and German, and say that it is 3 servers each, as in PvE, PvP, and RP. That would be 9 servers, which would be basically the equal amount as we have, at least according to what my current knowledge is. We're going to have 10 servers or so for the release of WoW Classic. I may be wrong on that number, but this is the number I have been hearing and seeing a lot. So that would be about the same number of servers altogether, as in it would be doubling the amount of servers. And how many folks would you have on all of those servers? If you cut it down to 2 only, PvE and PvP server, suddenly all the role players who really want to into that action would be feeling like, okay, well, we don't have a role-playing server, so we are going into the English-speaking role-playing server anyway to do our RP there. And so on, and so on. So I can completely see just cutting down those servers from Blizzard's point of view, because they do not know what the player retention is for WoW Classic. Because yeah, the hype is huge, and a lot of people want to play WoW Classic again, as in Vanilla WoW. But what will it be 6 months down the line? How about a year and a half? Will there be anybody sitting on those servers anymore? Like, yeah, I mean, if you get the original influx of thousands and thousands of players, yeah, sure. But what will happen with the numbers in year and a half, in 2 years? Will that have to happen, the old server merges and so on? Or do we need, at that point, like server clusters again, where we have cross-realm, and all of that stuff need to be put in anyway, because, and also, if at that point down the line we do have the whole cross-realm and we have to clump, let's say, French, Spanish, and German servers in with the English ones anyway, then why didn't it happen from the beginning? Give it some thought. There's what I think on it anyways. But I have to say that there are certain problems, obviously, with this when it comes to people who don't want to speak English for various reasons. Don't want to read it, write it, speak it, whatever. I mean, you do you. I am not judging at all. What will happen is that there will be certain groups going like, okay, we speak French, German, Spanish, or whatever language you have. And we have this group of folks of, you know, like-minded people who speak and write and read this language. We are gonna go on that server. And suddenly a whole lot of them are flocking onto that server because the word will spread and then they will always, you know, on one specific server. And that language will become the majority on many of the chat channels. And that problem will be, well, let's say it gets bigger over time, the problem, in the sense that, well, the more prevalent certain language becomes on the server chat, and especially if we get to the get to some of these things where you are being, well, I'm not pointing any fingers here, but let's say you are being replaced in groups and guilds and raids and PvP groups and so on by people, you know, who are speaking specific language, and you are somebody who does not speak that language. You get kicked, so somebody else speaking that particular language can be taken in your place. Suddenly you are going to leave that server, and then that server is basically going to be just that particular language speaking group anyway, eventually down the line. New players don't obviously know that. They hop onto the server, play for a while, realize, okay, this is actually the thing and I don't want to play anymore. And that will affect player retention to an extent. So that is definitely going to happen to some extent. I am not saying it will happen to every server, very likely it will not, and how big of a problem will it be? I don't actually know, but I know that it has happened in the past in basically every single MMORPG I have played, and I have played almost all of them since EverQuest. So yeah, it has happened basically everywhere. It did happen during Vanilla World of Warcraft, if people don't remember. It did happen back then as well. Now, I would recommend to all of you who don't really care what server you are, you know, going into, find folks out there, wait a day or wait until you know at least a little bit of where certain language groups are gonna go into, so you can make some sort of an educated decision. Alright, do I want to go into this server or do I want to go into that server? Up to you entirely how you go about things, but that's my recommendation, because these things will happen, no matter how much Blizzard will, you know, try to want to control anything or everything. This decision, I understand the decision to not include language specific servers from, you know, actual economical standpoint and player retention standpoint and all of that, and not having to do the whole cross-realm thing a year down the line. Hopefully, at least. I understand those decisions. But it will create certain other problems. Because not everybody wants to speak English, and I mean, that is their choice. I have nothing against speaking English. English is not my native language at all. But I have no problem speaking it, or writing it, or reading it, or whatever. Anyway, some people do. That's entirely their choice, and I am not judging one way or another. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you know what your server you are already rolling on, what kind of a server, whatever. I mean, be active about it, and maybe you will get like-minded folks on your server with you who want to do your thing. Thank you very much for watching, for listening,